to Commercial Arithmetic 2. In this topic, we discuss the concept of interest, the concept of depreciation and appreciation, the concept of hire purchase, and the concept of income tax. We start off with the concept of interest. Interest is the amount of fee charged or paid for borrowing any sum of money from a bank or a financial institution for a given period of time. It is also the amount a bank or a financial institution will pay to a customer for depositing any sum of money with the bank or the financial institution for a given period. Now, what this means is that if you walk into a bank to borrow some money, either for personal use or as business capital, the bank will give you money, yes, but not for free. They will charge a fee for giving you that money, and that fee will be higher if the amount is higher, or if you intend to stay with the amount for a longer period of time. If you borrow 10,000 from a bank for 1 year, you'll pay some fee. If you take the 10,000 and stay with it for 2 years, you will pay a higher fee. If you borrow a higher amount from the bank, say 20,000, you will not pay a fee as much as the person who has paid 10,000. On the other hand, if you deposit your money with the bank will not just keep your money, the bank will trade with that money. And for that reason, whatever profit they make out of your money, they will share with you part of it. That is the simple reason why the bank will pay you a fee for whatever money you deposit with them. So in simple terms, if you walk into a bank to borrow some money, you pay interest. If you deposit your money with the bank will pay you interest. For instance, a bank would charge 100 shillings for lending a customer shillings 1,000 for 1 year. In this case, shillings 100 is the interest and shillings 1,000 is the principal sum, the amount which was lent to the customer. And 1 year is the interest period, or simply time. A rate of interest. This is the amount of interest expressed as a percentage of the principal amount within a period. If an interest of shillings 100 is charged on shillings 1,000 for a period of 1 year, what is the rate of interest? Now, because rate of interest is the amount of interest paid expressed as a percentage of the principal sum, we take the amount of interest divided by the principal sum times 100, and that gives us 10%. This is the rate of interest per annum, or simply for 1 year. Interest rate, or rate of interest, is usually represented by letter R, small r or capital R. Find rate of interest if the interest amount is 250 and the principal sum is 5,000 for 1 year. Now, rate of interest R is the amount of interest divided by the principal sum times 100, and that gives us 5% per annum. This is the rate of interest. 5% per annum means that if you take 10,000, then 5% of the 10,000 will be interest. You pay a fee which is equivalent to 5% of the principal sum. Number 2, if the interest paid is 700 on a principal sum of 10,500 for 1 year, The rate of interest will be 700 over 10,500 times 100, and that gives us 6.667%. This is the rate of interest. There are two types of interest. We have what we call simple interest, and the other type of interest is called compound interest. Simple interest. Simple interest is interest which is calculated using the original principal amount. It means that throughout the interest period, the principal used is the same. It does not change. If our interest period is 3 years and that interest is calculated every year, to find the principal for year 1, we use the same principal amount as we shall use in year 2. Get this very clearly. When calculating simple interest, you use the same principal amount every year. If you borrow 10,000 shillings, you will use 10,000 to calculate the interest for year 1. You will use 10,000 again to calculate the interest for year 2. You will use 10,000 again to calculate interest for year 3. The principal used to calculate interest does not change throughout the interest period. Now, given that rate of interest R and principal amount P, every year the interest will be rate times the principal sum. That means the simple interest every year will be PR over 100. So, suppose that the interest period is for 3 years, the total interest paid throughout the period will be PR of 100 plus PR of 100 plus PR of 100. That will be PR of 100 into 1 plus 1 plus 1, and we have PR of 100 times 3. So for 3 years, the total interest paid will be PR over 100 times 3. Remember, the interest, simple interest, is the same every interest period because the same principal sum is used to calculate the interest. When calculating simple interest, you use the same principal amount every interest period. And therefore, it means the interest is the same for every interest period. That is why we have PR over 100 plus PR over 100 plus PR over 100, and that simplifies to PR over 100 times 3. Now, what will be the total interest for 4 years? Think about that. For 3 years, the interest paid will be PR over 100 times 3. What would it be if the interest period was 4 years? Okay. I think, or I hope you got it as PR over 100 times 4. So this value here represents the interest period. For 3 years, we have PR over 100 times 3. For 4 years, we shall have PR over 100 times 4. For 5 years, we shall have PR over 100 times 5. So, what will be the interest, total interest, if the interest period is T? It will be PR over 100 times T, and this gives us the general formula for calculating simple interest. To calculate simple interest over a period of time, we use the formula P times R times T over 100, where P is the principal sum, R is the rate of interest per period, and T is the total interest period, which may be in years or in months, depending on how interest is calculated. If interest is calculated every year, then T will be number of years. If interest is calculated every month, then T will be number of months. So, simple interest is PRT over 100. Let us apply this in a simple example down here. Calculate simple interest on shillings 5,000 for 2 years at a rate of 8% per annum. 8% per annum means interest will be calculated every year. Now for 2 years, the simple interest will be PRT over 100. And so we bring in the values of PR and T. And so we have 5,000 times 8 times 2 over 100. And that gives us shillings 800 as the total principal paid over a period of 2 years. Sorry, we get shillings 800 as the total interest paid for a period of 2 years. Most important is to master the formula for calculating simple interest. It is PRT over 100. And so if you apply it in this example, we shall have 5,000 times 8 times 2 over 100. If you work that out, you get the total interest over a 2-year period as shillings 800. Now, we can try these problems. You can copy these problems down on calculation of simple interest and attempt them to see if you have understood the concept of simple interest. Question 1, calculate simple interest on shillings 10,000 at 7.5% per annum for 2 years. Question 2, calculate simple interest on shillings 20,500 at 10% per annum for 18 months. Question 3, calculate simple interest on shillings 12,000 at 2% per month for 1 year. Try these problems so that in our next lesson we will discuss them together. More specifically, you will check your work against what we will have discussed. Thank you for now. Welcome back. In the previous section of this video, I asked you to try the following problems, which I hope you did. And now I invite you so that together we go through the solutions to enable you check if you work them out correctly. The first one, we are required to get the simple interests. Our principal is 10,000 and the rate of interest is 7.5% per annum. The time is 2 years over 100. If you work that out, we get 1,500. Okay. Next one, we have almost a similar problem, except for a few variations. Simple interest formula is PRT over 100. The principal is 20,500 times 10% per annum. And this guides us on what should be here. If we have 10% per annum here, in this part we should have the value in years. So 18 months divided by 12 so that we convert it into years. Then everything over 100. If we end up having 1.5 years, if we work this out, the simple interest becomes 3,075. Remember, what appears here, if it is per month, then we shall have months here. If it is per annum, then time will be in years. If the rate of interest here is quarterly, then we shall have number of quarters here. within the entire period. I hope you got it right. The reason why we divide by 12 is because we have rate in percentage per annum. Let's go to the next one. Again, same question. Simple interest, PRT over 100, 12,000 times rate is 2% per month. So that means what we must have here will be months because the rate is per month. So in 1 year we have 12 months and everything over 100. Again, our total simple interest for 1 year, that is 12 months, becomes 2,880. 2% per month means interest is calculated every month. I hope you got it. You can take a look once again. Here, it is 7.5% per annum. That means interest is calculated every year. So we have 2 interest periods. Here, it's calculated per month, per year. So we have 1.5 interest periods in 18 months. But here, interest is calculated every month, so we have 12 interest periods in 1 year. I hope you got the concept right. So we move on to another concept. Of calculating the rates, principal, time, and amount. All these, we can derive the formulas from the simple interest formula. And you can see from the interest formula of PRT over 100, we can get the formula for getting principal, the formula for getting rate, and the formula for getting time, as you can see. Remember, I stands for interest, P stands for principal, R stands for rate, and T stands for time, or interest periods. Okay, let us look at this problem. Calculate rate of interest given the principal as 10,000, interest amount as 500 after 2 years. We want to get rate. The formula for getting rate is 100 times interest over principal times time. We bring in the values, and upon evaluation, we get our rate of interest as 2.5% per annum. Okay. The next one, we calculate rate of interest per annum, given that shilling 75,000 earns 15,000 after 15 months. We want rate of interest in percent per annum. So we apply this formula. We bring in the values except in place of 15 months, we shall now convert it into years by dividing by 12 because rate of interest is required in percentage per annum. And so we evaluate this, we get our rate of interest as 16% per annum. Okay. Now, the next concept is the concept of amount. Amount is simply the sum of principal and interest. That is, A equals to P plus I, where A is amount, P is principal, and I is interest. It means that if a bank lends a customer a sum of Kenya shillings 100,000 for 2 years at a rate of 15% per annum, the customer will pay back to the bank the principal amount plus the interest. To calculate the amount, we must calculate the simple interest at the end of 2 years. We apply the simple interest formula PRT over 100 and we substitute the values, principal times rate times time over 100, and the interest is 30,000. It means at the end of 2 years, the customer will pay back to the bank the principal sum together with the interest. And so the amount is 100 plus 30,000. That comes to 130,000 as the amount which the customer will pay back to the bank. You realize he was given 100,000, but now he's paying back 130,000, being sum of principal and interest. This is the amount the customer will pay back to the bank. Okay. Calculate the interest first, then add to the principal to get the amount. Right. We now have a look at further problems as we come to the tail end of the subtopic. Here are 2 problems that I would like you to attempt. Take this down. James deposited Kenya shillings 12,500 in a bank, which offered interest at 12.5% per annum for a period of 3 years. Calculate A, the simple interest, B, the amount. Number 2, Mary borrowed some amount of money from a bank for a period of 48 months. If at the end of interest period, Mary paid to the bank a total of Kenya shillings 108,500 in principal and interest, and that the bank charged 10% per annum. Calculate A, the principal, B, the simple interest. Pause the video and attempt the 2 problems before you proceed to check with me against my solution. Compare with yours and see whether you are right. Just there are the 2 problems. Try them before you can proceed to check the correct working. Welcome back. Let us look at number 1, A. Simple interest, PRT over 100, 12,500 times 12.5 times 3 over 100. We get the simple interest at 4,687.5. Part B requires us to get the amount, which is simply principal plus interest, 12,500 plus 4,687.5. That gives us 17,187.5 as the amount. That must have been pretty simple. Okay. Number 2, Mary borrowed some amount of money, unknown amount of money. So we don't know the principal. We let the principal to be P, and we proceed to get the simple interest. As we substitute the values, we don't know the value of P. However, we know R as 10% per annum, and we know time as 48 months. Because rate is per month, is per annum rather, we convert 48 into years. So we divide by 12. And if we simplify, we get our interest as 2 over 5 P. This is the simple interest in terms of P. Now, we know the amount. So that gives us a clue that we can form an equation. Amount is 108,500 equals to principal plus interest. This is a simple equation in P. We multiply through by 5. We have 5P plus 2P equals to 542,500. 7P is 542,500. And P is 542,500 divided by 7. and we get our principal as 77,500. This is the principal amount. Part B requires us to get simple interest. From part A, we know that simple interest is 205p. We know p from part A. We bring it in, and we get our simple interest as 31,000. Alternatively, we can use the amount formula. That amount is principal plus interest. So interest is amount subtract principal. From the question, we know the amount as 108,500. From part A answer, we know the principal as 77,500. Once again, through this method, we get our simple interest as 31,000 flat. All right, so this far, we come to the end of the subtopic on simple interest. In our next lesson, we will introduce compound interest.